Hi everyone, my name is Renka. Welcome to this paper presentation. This talk is Esports Governance Analysis of Rule Enforcement in League of Legends. The authors of this study include me, Xinning Gui, and Yubo Ko. We are all from Penn State University. Like traditional sports such as basketball and football, electronic sports or esports face governance challenges such as cheating in the game, full or fake play, betting or match fixing, and so on. As platforms regulate these problematic behaviors through governance structures, we consider esports governance as the social process, practice, and the rules through which esports activities are organized and coordinated. And esports governance, or how esports should be governed, is considered as one of the biggest challenges to the development of the esports industry. There are a lot of unanswered questions such as who should govern esports, how they should govern it, as well as what are the parameters for their governance. Because of so many murky dimensions in esports governance, it is a contested topic in both academic research and industrial practice. Scholars may take different disciplinary perspectives on this issue, and game companies have developed a different practice in governing their own esports titles. So our study contributes to the broader conversations about esports governance by empirically characterizing esports governance and how it is conducted. Specifically, we want to understand and unpack the phenomena of esports governance from the angle of rule enforcement. We conducted a case study of rule enforcement in a popular multiplayer online game, League of Legends, where the game publisher identifies a rule-breaking incident through its competitive rulings and policies. In other words, we wanted to understand how League of Legends game publisher punished the professional players. And we chose League of Legends as our study context because its professional competition has attracted the most viewerships across the world in the past of several years. So to better understand how game publisher of League of Legends adjudicate their ruling cases on the esports participants such as professional players and teams, we ask two research questions. The first question is, what behavior is considered by the game publisher as rule breaking? And then we ask how contextual factors such as locations where the ruling cases happened, the time of rule breaking, and the perpetrator identity influence the rule enforcement. To answer this question, we collected a longitudinal data of competitive rulings from an online sheet on Gamepedia, which is the largest video wiki platform. We also iteratively searched on news articles for ruling cases happened in the League of Legends ecosystem in the past. Finally, we acquired 571 rows of data points, including 347 ruling cases, where one ruling case might include different penalties for different types of esports participants such as coaches or teams. And then we conducted two stages of data analysis. We conducted content analysis and identified 11 types of rule-breaking behaviors and other variables at this table shown here to answer the first research question. And then we performed a series of statistical tests on results we generated from content analysis to understand how contextual factors affect the rule enforcement in the League of Legends ecosystem. Specifically, we found there are 11 types of behaviors that the game publisher considered as rule-breaking behavior. The key takeaway message here is that rule enforcement in the League of Legends ecosystem is expensive to govern esports participants' play and their work and their life. For example, the game publisher considered the behaviors that professional players performed outside of competition, such as in their social media platforms, streaming channels, or everyday games as problematic, and then the ecosystem issued the penalties to them. And besides these 11 types of rule-breaking behaviors, we also found 12 regions associated with the ruling cases, 8 penalties with different severities, and 4 perpetrator identities and other contextual variables for us to answer the second research question. And using the result from content analysis, we performed several statistical tests and found that the context of the ruling cases influenced the rule enforcement in League of Legends ecosystem. One test we performed is cross-Wallace test to understand how regions or locations of ruling cases affect rule enforcement. With significant results from each test, we performed a post-hoc analysis and found 3 primary takeaway messages. First, compared to regions like Brazil, China, Europe, Japan, and North America, international tournament performed more lenient rule enforcement. Also, Latin America League had a mean of penalty equal to 3, which was also significantly lower than many other regions. We figured this result happened because Latin America League was found several years later than other regions and was yet to develop complete rules. And finally, South Korea was significantly different from 6 regions including China, Europe, North America, Oceania, Southeast Asia, and Turkey, because South Korea was more likely to release a force-level penalty, primarily a fine decision, to teams and professional players. And then, through Pearson's correlation, we found the penalties that esports participants experienced are progressively harsher on a yearly basis. That means when the time went by, the penalty hierarchy also grew in a weak positive trend. We visualize this trend as this picture shown here. The moving average of penalty hierarchy started slightly below the competition ban between 0 and 1 month before the year of 2013, and then increased beyond the competition ban between 1 year and 2 years in 2021. To understand if esports participants' identities affect punishment decision they received, we performed the edge test again between the identity and the punishment hierarchy variable and found that punishment distribution significantly differed across these identities, including coaches, managers, players, and teams. Specifically, the game publisher was more likely to impose harsher penalties on professional players, and the managers were owners, and the manager experienced the harshest. Based on this study's findings, we observe a top-down governance structure and a rule enforcement across regions, esports participants' identities, and time. And to discuss such top-down control through the game publisher's eyes, we notice that penalties are not static, but are varied and depend on the rule breakers' identities and degrees of their involvement. Especially, the game publisher blurs the boundary between professional players' work and play. Specifically, the game publisher managed to exercise authority over professional contexts such as esports tournament and also non-professional contexts such as professional players' streaming channels and everyday gameplay. So the power imbalance between game publishers and esports participants become exacerbated in rule enforcement. And in this way, esports governance presents a more complicated case involving not just online platforms, but an ecosystem of online and offline entities. So we argue that it would be beneficial if esports governance is not dominated by a single entity. Instead, esports governance practice could involve participation from different stakeholders. Also, since esports governance erases the boundary between professional players' work and play, we need to consider more about whether and how rule enforcement should be applied to daily game contexts, and also to support players to acquire necessary knowledge of navigating their professional careers under esports governance. Before ending this presentation, I would like to thank all reviewers for their insightful feedbacks, and also I'd like to thank National Science Foundation support for this study. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, please contact us through email or Twitter.